4 guns in a cardboard box, a sawn-off shotgun, 2 revolvers, and a Colt, ammunition scattered inside. That's what detectives opened up in a Nottingham garage. And at the centre of it all was a 22-year-old named J.J. Logan Cross. This wasn't a movie prop stash. It was a live arsenal sitting in Beeston. And the box itself carried the fingerprint of Cross, a young man already suspected of running a county line's drug line. In that moment, police suspicions turned into hard evidence. But the story didn't stop at one garage. Investigators traced him to another lockup in Wallerton. Inside, a stolen motorbike, a pile of ammunition, and drugs worth more than £80,000, heroin, cocaine, and thousands in cash. A double life lived out of storage units, where weapons and narcotics sat side by side, ready to fuel crime on 2 fronts. And the arrogance showed on his own phone. When investigators dug through his messages, they didn't just find drug orders. They found photos of Cross himself posing with a revolver. Another shot, holding a sawn-off shotgun. These weren't leaked by enemies or captured secretly. He took them, kept them, flaunted them. For a man barely into his 20s, the image mattered more than the risk. So, who was Cross? He wasn't some international kingpin. He was a 22-year-old from Camrose Close in Bilborough. Police believed he was running a county lines operation, a dedicated mobile phone line used to pump out bulk text offers of heroin and cocaine, taking orders and arranging drop-offs across Nottinghamshire and into nearby counties. For months, detectives had kept him on their radar. But the discovery of firearms escalated things from drug dealing into something far more dangerous. It began in September 2021. Intelligence suggested Cross was tied to an organised county lines gang. That meant he wasn't selling in a vacuum. County lines groups operate like franchises. One phone, one brand, multiple runners pushing drugs to customers. They exploit the young, the vulnerable, anyone desperate for money. Violence is never far away. By November, Nottinghamshire police made their move, raiding the Beeston garage. There they found the cardboard box, 4 firearms, a Russian Baikal shotgun, sawn down to make it more concealable, a Webley revolver, a Smith & Wesson revolver, and a Colt double action. Alongside them, a stash of live rounds. These weren't antiques or display pieces, they were working weapons, potentially lethal in the wrong hands. Forensics changed everything. A fingerprint on the box linked directly to Cross. Traces of his DNA were recovered on 2 of the guns. That's evidence a courtroom won't dismiss. From that moment, detectives had more than suspicion. They had science. Then came February 2022. Another garage, this one in Wallerton. It had already been tied to Cross by the county lines unit. Officers went in, and once again, the storage unit told its own story. £80,000 worth of heroin bagged up for supply, £5,000 worth of cocaine, £7,000 in cash, a stolen motorbike tucked away, more ammunition ready to pair with the weapons from Beeston. This wasn't a kid dabbling on the side, it was a young man running a dangerous enterprise, balancing Class A drugs and live guns as part of his toolkit. Cross was arrested soon after. The charges piled up fast, 4 counts of possessing firearms, 3 counts of possessing ammunition, 2 counts of possessing Class A drugs with intent to supply, and 1 count of possessing criminal property. By December 2022, facing overwhelming evidence, he pleaded guilty. January 2023, Nottingham Crown Court. The courtroom laid it all out. The county lines phone, the garages, the drugs, the weapons, the photos. Prosecutors didn't need theatrics. The facts were enough. Cross listened as each count was read. He was just 22 years old, but the judge handed down 9 years in prison. Let's stop there. 9 years might not sound extraordinary, but for someone barely into adulthood, it's most of his 20s. For a county lines dealer, that's an entire empire lost. Judges don't give that length lightly. It was the combination of drugs and firearms that tipped it over the edge. Guns raise the stakes, because while drugs ruin lives slowly, firearms can take lives instantly. And that's what makes this case chilling. The guns weren't decoration, they weren't heirlooms. They were live, dangerous, and tied to a young dealer already spreading heroin and cocaine across Nottingham. If they had made it to the streets, they could have escalated disputes, armed robberies, or worse. The sentence reflected that danger. But here's another angle. Cross wasn't a mystery figure from the shadows. He was part of a generation drawn into county lines culture. These networks thrive on young people, often barely adults, lured by promises of cash and power. It feels like easy money. It looks glamorous, especially when flaunted on phones through photos and social media. But it's a lie. Behind every flashy picture, there's exploitation, addiction, and inevitable prison time. The photos on Cross's phone captured that mindset perfectly. A young man, proud to pose with a revolver and a shotgun. To him, it was status. To a court, it was damning. And to the public, it's a warning sign of how casually weapons are treated inside these networks. So what's the bigger picture? County lines gangs operate across the UK. They use burner phones, cheap hire cars, and runners to spread drugs far beyond cities. Violence is their enforcement tool. Vulnerable children are often groomed into moving product. It's not just about money, it's about control. Cross's case fits into that template, but the addition of firearms made him stand out. Forensic evidence sealed the outcome. Fingerprints, DNA, and digital evidence. It's a reminder that in today's investigations, the trail criminals leave is often invisible until it's examined under a microscope. Cross thought garages, lockups, and burner phones would shield him. In reality, every trace linked back to him. 9 years won't erase the harm done by the drugs he sold. It won't undo the damage caused by the weapons he stored. But it does stop him, at least for now. It takes those firearms out of circulation. And it sends a message, not through speeches, but through reality. Guns and drugs mean long sentences. For Nottinghamshire Police, the case was presented as a success. For the community, it was a relief. And for Cross, it was the end of the line, at least until his 30s. But step back and look again. Here was a young man, 22 years old, sitting on an arsenal of revolvers, a shotgun, thousands in cash, and a pipeline of heroin. Not a cartel boss, not an untouchable kingpin, just a county lines operator caught up in something bigger than he could handle. That's the pattern repeating across the country. Young men, fast money, weapons too dangerous to ignore. And that's why this case resonates. It's not just about the stash in a Beeston garage or the wallet on lockup. It's about how quickly ambition and arrogance can turn into a prison sentence. From text messages to fingerprints, from selfies with guns to garages full of heroin, the trail was short but damning. For you watching, the lesson is simple. The more spectacular the photos, the more spectacular the downfall. J.J. Logan Cross thought he was building an empire. Instead, he built a case against himself. 9 years, 4 firearms, 3 counts of ammunition, tens of thousands in heroin and cocaine, 1 stolen motorbike, and 1 young man who went from posing with guns to posing in the dock at Nottingham Crown Court. That's the story of J.J. Logan Cross, a county lines dealer whose arrogance, ambition, and arsenal combined to seal his fate.